You good?
Alright,
We're not live?
We're live.
We're live? We're famous?
Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Sewing Badly with Brent. Today's project's going to be awesome because it's so awesome you don't need to press, you don't need pins, and it's very fashionable. See my fashion? My fashion?
That's questionable, but
Oh, I better turn off the sound on my thing here because I'm trying to. Oh, why is that making noise? Don't make noise. There we go. Okay. So you see, we're gonna make this scarf today because everybody has leftover minky from the back of quilts and stuff, and so that's today. So this is a teaser because now I'm gonna make you all watch the shop news as I hawk all our new stuff, but. We're going to be making this on a featherweight. So there's a few things we're going to get into. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's what's on the agenda for today. But before we get going, let's talk about what came in and what's new. First off, we had an order come in for Benartex, and we have these cool kits. They're interesting kits. I got the kit because I really like the panel. It comes with all the fabric. I think they're... you have to check our website. I forget what we're charging for them. I want to say it's like $60. But it's gonna make it makes this quilt. We don't have the sample or anything done up yet. It comes out 50 by 70. Just came in yesterday, so we don't have any samples made. But it's got this really nice panel. Here, let me open the panel up. Make a mess of this very nicely folded kit because that's what I do. I make messes out of things. But here is the panel that is kind of the centerpiece to it. So it's got a really kind of nice artsy look to it. I really like it. That's why I ordered it. So there's that kit. Like I said, the kit has everything you need to make the top. I liked the panel. We didn't get any of the yardage to go with this. We've got some basics and stuff that'll match it if you want to do something a little different. But the kit will make you a 50 by 70 quilt top. So that's just came in. Came in yesterday. That should be on the website right now. So if you want to order that, that should be up there. The other project that came in was this awesome panel. And you're like, what does that panel do? Well, I put Eddie to work yesterday, and I'll show you what that panel does. It makes this stylish backpack. And so then I asked Eddie after he got done making it, I'm like, Eddie, see, it even has the little... Did you not put the lining in this? I think there was probably lining for that pocket.
maybe.
Is there some extra left over on the panel?
I don't know.
Anyway, the instructions are on the panel. I guess we could look it up right now. So I asked Eddie after he got done making it, I was like, what do you think? Is that a pretty cool backpack or what? And he's like, if I was in kindergarten, it would be fantastic. So this is, you can make this up with the panel. We're probably going to put together kits. The panel's like $14, but we're probably going to throw in the fusible fleece and the zipper and charge like $20 for it. I got to figure that out, but we'll probably have kits together to make the backpack because all it takes extra beyond the panel is a zipper and some fusible fleece. And this is also included on the panel. This fantastic little dinosaur. Does he have a name, Eddie? John the dinosaur. So that came in yesterday. The other thing that I'm excited, we also got Vintage Floral. Came in from Maywood Studios. I think this is the latest Kimberbell line, but I don't know for sure. But it's from Maywood, so it's still nice fabric. These are the kind of the coordinates. You can see those are some nice kind of blenders. A nice dot. That's real nice. And then the other thing is we've got the dots. Another dot of the same kind of teal and blue, and then the big thing is going to be this right here is going to be a real nice, just a real nice collection. It's got a lot of potential, like I said, because it's got a nice blender tone-on-tone look to it. It's got a lot of uses. This is just a really nice kind of all-over pattern, scaled real nice, so you can really chop this up and do some fun stuff with it. I think I do have a kit that we'll be making with it. Don't know for sure. We just busted this box open a couple minutes ago, so don't have a lot of details on that yet, but that came in. Keep an eye out for the project on that. Then, as some of you may be fans of the Ruby Star Society, which is a collection of designers or a group of designers for Moda, and they make some great stuff. And so this is going to be the latest Ruby Star. It's called Curio, and it's got this nice tone on tone. It's got this nice kind of rose gold star thing going on. And what I really bought this for, and I can't figure out what I'm going to do with it, is the fish. Nice little metallic fish. And if that wasn't enough fish for you, we got this one too, so you can do fish in the light or the dark. So that also came in. That's on our website. I want to say this was like $12.95 a yard. I've got to double check that, but it's going to be something like that. So that's all the new stuff. Check it out online. Order it up. And we'll get that shipped out. The other thing we are still also is our Basics Builders Club, which is for $42 a month. You get 7 half-yard cuts of coordinated basics. All of them, which will be reorderable. Like this was February's, so it's all pinks. Obviously, we're putting together March's today, which we're probably gonna stick with the theme and go with green because St. Patrick's Day. And so you get 7 half-yard cuts, and then with that you'll also get color cards of each one. So if you want to reorder or you want to file these in your own system, you'll be able to reorder these colors if you use them in a project or need more yardage of them. Because everything everything that comes with this club is always going to be a basic. So we're going to keep it in stock. So it's a nice way to kind of build up your stash without having to have a huge stash. You just have a piece of it, and then you're like, oh, I need more of this, and then you order it rather than hoard yards and yards of fabric. So anyway, that's everything I have for new stuff. Now, we're going to get into making a scarf. The reason I was thinking of this, I was like, oh, what am I going to do today? And I'm like, I was out snow blowing, and I'm like, I couldn't find my scarf. My mom knitted me this awesome scarf years ago. It's like a bazillion feet long, and it's bright red, and it's just fantastic, and I couldn't find it the other day. And I was like, well, I need a new scarf. And so I was like, well, we'll make a scarf for our show today. And I know everybody has, well, not everybody, but if you're a fan of Minky, which I highly recommend Minky, it is awesome on the back of quilts. So a lot of the quilts I make for samples that I plan on taking home get Minky on the back. I've converted a lot of people to the cult of Minky as far as quilting goes. It makes a great quilt back. But what happens is you get a lot of scraps left over because at the end, after you get it all quilted up, you got to trim everything up and you got all these scraps. So Minky makes a great scarf. And it's a pain in the butt to piece with. So you have these scraps, and what I'm going to do with it? We're going to make a scarf. Now, I spent all morning trying to remember how to make a scarf because I did this a few years back, and the first attempt was here. I was told the blue looks better than the purple, but I didn't think the blue went with the pattern. But this has a few differences than this one here that we're going to talk about how we made this. So, basic materials, all you need to make this is a strip of Minky. Now, I'm using a border stripe. I did made one of these in the past using a charm pack, just sewed a bunch of charms end to end to end to end to make my strip. But you need a strip. I would recommend 60 inches is a good place to start because Minky with the fabric is 60 inches from salvage to salvage unless you have the wide stuff, which is 90. So depending on which Minky scrap you have, that's how I would decide how long to make my strip. Whether, if it's a 90-inch scrap piece, I would do it 90 because you can see this is a 90-inch one. And you see I can wrap this around me a million times if I wanted to. Whereas the 60-inch one, this is more kind of like, the Red Baron type, you only get one way around on the 60-inch. So your strip length is going to depend on what your Minky scrap. I would, like I said, I think 60 makes a good one. 90 does it, depending how many times around you want to go around your head. Any questions yet?
Well, you got a question, but you answered it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is now. Here's the other trick when you're making this. So I cut this strip is at 9.5 inches. You're going to see why here in a minute. The width of the strip is very important. If you Google, because Google is our friend. I should have checked the chat AI bot. I was talking to that the other day. It was very strange. Google how wide is the typical scarf. It's anywhere from 5 to 8 inches, and length goes anywhere from 3 feet to 8 feet. That's what it says on the interwebs. I would recommend that. I have found that 5 is a little too narrow for a scarf. I like somewhere between like a 6 and an 8 inch is a pretty good place to be. For the way we're doing this, we got a lot of fudge room, and you'll see why here in a minute. Thing to keep in mind. Now, I actually based the strip of this off of this because I took this border stripe that I had and I cut it, but on a repeat. So I've got one repeat, which is actually 6.5 inches. So this is a 6.5 inch strip, and then I cut this 3 inches bigger, 3 inches wider. Now, why, you might ask, would I do such a crazy thing? Because the trick is we're going to cut this a little bit wider so this minky wraps around the edges here. You see how that we wrap that around the edge? And if you do 3 inches wider, you're going to get 1.5 inches or 3/4 of an inch on each side. If you go 4 inches wider, you'll get 1 inch on each side. This is actually only 2 inches, so I only got 1/2 inch. But we're going to do it with 3 inches to get the 3/4 of an inch. So that's all you need for materials: is a strip of fabric, and then a strip of minky the same length, but 3 inches wider. And we're ready to go. Anyway, questions? Not yet. Okay. We're also going to do it today on this fantastic vintage featherweight, which might be for sale. I haven't decided yet. I really liked it after sewing on it. If it is for sale, it's going to be $450. It's in good shape, sews real nice. But we're going to sew it on this. And there's a couple things that I wanted to answer because I ran into a few other things about featherweights. Because featherweights are certainly, you can certainly sew on them and they work fine. One of the first things that we would want to do on a featherweight is, which camera are you on? I want to show that. I'll put this down here. How's that sound? This is your featherweight foot. This is what's going to come stock, OEM, on a featherweight, is this guy right here. It's just a regular foot, but the problem with it is you are locked into this foot. There's no way to snot that off. But if you look on over here, these are really, you can put that over there so you can see it. What's nice is they put this nice big thumb screw on here, so it's very easy to take one off. This is actually just a generic, I say generic as I make a mess over here. This is just a generic snap foot ankle. That's it. This you can pick up. They come in this. We have them in these kits here from Eversew, quilting accessory foot for $42.95. But a lot of people buy the kit for the walking foot that comes in it. And this walking foot will also work on a featherweight. But the kind of the trick to getting more mileage out of your featherweight is swap out the stock foot with one of these snap-on feet, because you now have the ability to snap feet on and off any generic foot. So that's what we have on here. And then there's one other thing that I'm going to show you, because this came up. You know, sometimes I haunt the Reddit forums to get ideas of things to talk about. And this came up, and I thought, well, this will be a good excuse to kind of cover this. Is somebody got their grandma's featherweight, or their grandmother's old machine, and they had this. And they're like, what is that for? What purpose does that have? And on a featherweight, this actually is a super useful tool. So we're going to snap a foot on here. We're going to snap on just a regular flat foot. Keep in mind on a featherweight that the needle is set to the center position. You cannot, is any of that noise coming through on there? All the people out front?
I don't know.
All right, I was going to say, do I have to go yell at people?
That's for my page. No, I was just gonna say,
So, anyway, so we got that snapped on. A featherweight has no zigzag, so you are stuck in a straight stitch mode. Now this is important. Now this is something to keep in mind, that no matter where I go, I cannot change my needle position, and this is probably. Hey, can you guys quiet down a little bit? Can you ask them to?
I think
Okay, they hear me. All right. So yes, center position. So this is going to be in your center position, no zigzag. That's kind of what also makes a featherweight so popular. Because there's no zigzag, it's going to hold you straight. You get a much better stitch out of it because you don't have the cams and stuff that wiggle. And the other thing is you can also go through thicker materials and not worry about breaking needles because there's no zigzag. Zigzag is actually what causes needles to break a lot of times when you're going through thicker stuff because there's a little bit of play in the needle bar. So what this is good for, and this comes in super handy, is because you can't adjust where your needle falls. So one of the tricks that I will use on a regular sewing machine is if I want to do like a 1/4 inch off the edge of my foot here, I will adjust my needle position to be a 1/4 inch off the edge of the foot. I can't do that on a featherweight. A featherweight is stuck in the straight position. So what this guide does is on this foot, there's a little spot where it slides in on the back, and it just slides right in. So you can see where that slides. Now, what's really cool about a featherweight, because it is set in one position, you will notice that there are some markings here on the needle plate. There's a 1/2 inch mark right there. That line is set to a 1/2 inch. So I can slide this in, set that at a 1/2 inch, and that is now my guide for a 1/2 inch seam. There's also a 3/8 seam on there as well, and the 1/4, but the 1/4 is beyond the edge of the foot, so I couldn't set my guide up there. So that's what this is for, is it's made so that you can adjust, and you can use this on regular machines, but on a featherweight it's super helpful, because you know that these lines are right where they're supposed to be, because this is straight stitch and this never moves. So if you want a 1/2 inch seam, you set that at 1/2 inch, and away you go. You want a 3/4 or a 3/8, you can go there, or out to a 3/4. So that's what these are for. Now keep in mind, if you are going to use one of these, the shape of it is important, because one of the things you may run into is, if you'll notice when I go down with my needle, you see where the needle bar is just barely clearing this here. And if I put this one on, which is actually a newer version of that same guide, this guide here is a little bit shorter here to here, and this needle bar will actually hit this. So this one won't work. On a featherweight, you do have to be a little bit more specific on which one you get. You'll need an older one. Ron asked a good question. What keeps it from wiggling out? On the back of your foot, on the back of your ankle adapter, can you zoom in on that, Eddie? Yep. There is a little slot where that slides in. And the other place that you'll also have a slot for these is almost every walking foot has this hole right here in the back. And that hole in the back is made to stick one of these guides through. So, like this kit that we have comes with a guide for your walking foot, but it also has that spot on the back of your ankle for that guide. So, these guides, like I said, a lot of people, almost every machine has them. Very few people use them, but that's what they're for. And there's enough friction in there. It's kind of a friction fit. It holds it in place. And then you might have to double check it now and again. So that's what that guide is for. So I just thought I would show that real quick while we're doing this. And then when I was sewing up my sample for this, I realized that you're probably going to watch me thread this machine more than you're going to watch me sew. But is what it is. So without further ado, let's make a scarf. And I am not going to use any sort of guides because I'm going to cheat. And there's a couple different ways to do this. All I'm going to do is, let me make sure I'm probably going to have to wind a bobbin. That's good there. Is I'm just going to go right sides together. I'm going to take my strip of Minky, and I'm just going to throw it on the table. And what you're going to find is I'm going to show you why this turns out bad sometimes. And I'm just going to line my raw edges up. Now, what I'm going to do is you could use like a 1/4 inch foot or some sort of guide to set your seam allowance on this. What I am going to do is, because I'm on the back of the fabric, I'm going to use this printed line as my guide. So I've got this white line here. I'm just going to sew just to the inside of that. That's what I'm going to use as a guide, because I've got that same line on both sides, and that's all I'm looking for. And that will also help me make sure that the strip on top looks pretty decent. And because this is Minky, it's going to be hard to keep this lined up perfectly. So you do want to cheat it in a little bit, because the Minky is significantly wider than this. So if you cheat it in a little bit, you're not going to lose anything. And then we're just going to, and I suppose you could also do this with regular fabric and not Minky on the back, but then I don't know why you'd want to. It's just, it wouldn't be as cozy as a scarf. I'm not going to bother locking my stitch in at this point, because we're still going to have to finish the ends. So I'm just going to zip it down. Look at that. And every time I sew on one of these, I forget how nice they are. It's just got a nice smooth sound to it. And I'm just keeping my edges lined up, and I'm just following that white line. It's very exciting. The other thing to keep in mind, if you had 90-inch Minky versus 60-inch Minky, that's a third, half again as long. So it's gonna be longer to make, which is also why I switched to a 60-inch piece for this, because 90 is just super long, and it was gonna take forever for me to piece. And you'll notice if you're watching carefully, you're gonna see just how off my seam is here. But is what it is. And what's that?
The guide thing, is there a way to make it, because on the thing it seems to be very loose.
On this one it is very loose. And I'll explain to you why in a minute when I get this off of the machine. Because I was originally going to sew with the guide, but then I realized it was easier for me to just look at the line on the fabric. And we all know when we do Sewing Badly with Brent, it's about what's easy and allows me to be lazy. And that was the answer for today. And what happened is, I'll show you here in a minute. I got to get this out of the way. Oh, I didn't cut this so well. And my 3/4 inches is going to look as good on this as I thought, because look at how bad that seam allowance is. Well, whatever. So what happened is the guide is a little loose, and I'll show you why. Because I had it on here and I was getting all excited. I'm going to go to town. We're going to make a scarf, and I had this in here. And then I'm like, oh, I need a bobbin. And then I picked this up to do a bobbin, and you see what that hits? And that in turn bent the spring that holds it in, which makes it all super loose. So that's the story of why the guide is kind of loose on this machine, because of that. Popped it right off, nothing's broken, but now I've got to take a pair of pliers probably and just bend that back in place. But you can see if you look closely, it's got a little bit more play in it than it should. Out of the box, you wouldn't have that problem. It's just because, you know, I'm kind of special sometimes that we have that issue. All right. Does that answer that question? Yeah, that guy, yeah, that particular guide, Jen, you are correct, because of the mess that I made with it. It's a little wobbly and doesn't really work like it should. You do have a rubber, there's like a rubber stopper in the walking foot that kind of keeps a nice friction fit. And newer, a lot of these will also have a plastic kind of a rubber inside this spring here that'll keep that guide from sliding around. Like I said, for this example, my own foolishness is kind of what made that spring kind of non-functional at this point. And I imagine you could like wrap it in like electrical tape or something if you really wanted to. So then we're just gonna, now we just went up one side, and if you look closely, my seam is awful, but we wouldn't expect anything less from such an adventure. We're all over the map, but it's Minky, so who cares? And I mean, if you're somebody that is, if you're making this as a gift, you could be a lot more careful. I suppose I should be more careful and take more pride in my work, but you know, this is my third one today. We'll get it sorted at some point. And so then we're just going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just going to line up the raw edges and follow my designated line down. And what you're going to find is the second side is always easier than the first, because it kind of, now that it's anchored on one edge, the Minky is a lot less,
Bobbin.
I'm out of bobbin? No, okay.
Oh, okay.
And I probably have to mess with my tension a little bit. I don't have this machine super dialed in. Like I said, I could probably adjust the tension a little bit on the bobbin and a few other things. Another thing to keep in mind with a featherweight, which is kind of a nice feature, is you've got this up here. This adjusts your foot pressure. So if you're going through thicker stuff, you can go up, come down. Like if you're doing Minky and you're finding that you're sliding a lot, you might have to tighten that down a little bit to put more pressure on it. So that's a nice adjustment. A lot of higher end newer machines have that, but you're not going to see that on your entry level stuff anymore. This adjustment, you don't. That's not on entry level machines anymore. And so.
Now you're out of bobbin.
No, I'm out of bobbin. I am out of bobbin, yes. I knew that was going to happen. And I could definitely got to fix the tension on this, because you can see where that's pulling a little funky, but whatever. All right, we're out of bobbin. So, as luck would have it, I have a nice empty bobbin here. That slides on there. We got like lots of ambient noise going on today. We got the tire place next door is playing. I don't know if that's Insane Clown Posse or whatnot.
I forget that they make noise sometimes.
I know it's just because we get so used to it. But it did get you a couple bucks off on your tires when we had to redo them the other day. Because the manager's like, let me take care of you because I know we make a lot of noise here. And I'm like, you're the best, Shane. So if you ever need tires, Town Fair Tire next door, they do a great job, and you come hang out with us while they're doing your tires. Why is that? This is exciting. It's almost as much fun as watching water boil. And what amazes me about these old machines, oh, don't tell me that didn't sit right. Did I sit that right? You son of a gun. Is that, you see what I did there, Eddie? I didn't tighten that enough. I wasn't quite out of thread. What amazes me about these old machines is how little they've actually changed in the last. Like I said, the mechanics of everything is the same as, you can look at like a super high-end Brother Luminaire. The actual function of creating the stitch is the exact same as on this machine here. It's just, it's got way more.
Like the only real big change is like the shuttle bobbin.
Yeah, the shuttle bobbin, which I was going to actually get into that today. I thought that would be kind of fun, but then I'm like, oh, did I just drop my bobbin? I did drop my bobbin. Where'd it go? All right. So what happened here is that bobbin didn't quite wind tight enough because it didn't sit underneath the tension spring here enough. So what I'm going to do is rewind this bobbin onto that bobbin with the proper tension, and hopefully that will keep me from having problems as I start to sew. And this is a trick. If you've ever wound a bobbin that's not quite tight, this is a quick, easy way to move the thread from one to the other, and it takes care of the problem. The other thing you'll also notice if you ever do this, so it's a quick, easy trick to make your bobbin tighter. And what you're going to notice if you ever run into this is that this bobbin's going to have less thread on it than this one because this one's wound tighter. And all I did is when I got that off, I realized that this was super squishy, and if you have a super squishy bobbin, that will lead to problems. And that's the only reason I rewound it, was just because I don't want to have problems. This is always backwards too. Everything on a featherweight is backwards. Anybody have one? You notice this? That everything on a featherweight is backwards. And that is probably why my tension's off. That's a lot better. Okay, that's probably too much now. Yep, that's too much. And luckily I didn't chew my thumbnail this morning. Because thumbnails, like if you chew your fingernails, it's going to gross people out. Thumbnails are like the best fingernail if you're going to chew fingernails. They've got some nice structure to them. But I know that that's super gross, and I don't know I just shared that all with you. But, it is what it is. Do you chew your fingernails, Eddie?
I prefer the ring finger.
You prefer the ring finger?
I think it's got because it's hard to get the thumb.
It's got a good angle. It's much easier because getting the angle on the thumb is a lot harder to do. This is true. This is very true. But yes, you are your father's child. So we're gonna re-sign this. We just had some dead air there, which I suppose I'm told is bad. if you're in showbiz or broadcast industry, you never have dead air, so I got to sit here and talk to myself as I fight with the thread. And I knew that this was going to be most of today was rethreading this machine. Because I'm spoiled. I'm used to all the newfangled technology. What did I just do there? Okay. Where I can just like hit the button and it threads. And now I've got to actually do this one by eye. And I realized how much older I'm getting, that this is becoming more and more of a chore. Again, everything on a featherweight is backwards. You're actually going right to left. I think I've told this story before. The first time I fixed the featherweight, I thought I broke it because I had the needle in backwards and I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't work. And it's just, everything on a featherweight, like I said, is backwards, but they're just so nice. And everything is good there. Okay, that was that one quicker than I thought it was going to go. And then because we did that, let's turn that up a hair. See what that does for us. And I probably have our tension all screwed up, but hey. So we're just going to pick up back where we left off. I should lock the stitch in, but I'm not going to worry about it because it's just the kind of day I'm having. And I'm just going to, away we go. Look at that. Life is good. Yeah, what is really nice about a featherweight, and what really I think a lot of people underestimate, is the size of it and the portability of them is really nice. I am very, like I said, I am so used to sewing on modern machines that are so much bigger. You get a lot more throat space on a modern machine, which is nice for a lot of projects, but with that throat space comes a lot more size, and these pack up nice. And I mean, if you're traveling or going to a sew along or a retreat, featherweights are a fantastic machine because they sew really nice, and they're super portable. And most of them come in the cute little black case that they come with. But even if, for some reason they got a featherweight that doesn't have one, there's lots of aftermarket options for them too. But they are fantastic, great portable machines. I know that Singer, I think a few years back, tried to revive it, but it's not the same. And honestly,
have you seen a Singer featherweight too?
Yeah, weren't they awful? You're gonna look it up right now? Because I know they tried to revitalize, revive the featherweight. The problem that you run into, though, and this is what nobody really talks about, is with a featherweight brand new back in the day, adjusted for inflation, is $1,200 to $1,500. Yeah, it's an awful machine. It's a featherweight. They're trading on the featherweight name. But like I said, back in the day, if you adjusted for inflation, the price of a featherweight is $1,200 to $1,500. And the sewing machines that you could buy today, for that kind of money are nice. And to remake a featherweight it would be very hard to be competitive in the market.
Ron would like to see how to backstitch.
I will show you how to backstitch here in just a minute. So after you now here's another trick. If you make your scarf too thin, it's much harder to turn. By making it at least 6 inches wide, 6.5, it's really easy. You just stick your hand up in there and pull it through. Whereas if you go like down to like 5 inches and you have giant gorilla arms like me, you can't do what I just did. So yeah, that's another bonus to keep in mind on making it fairly large. Okay, did I grab a rotary cutter, Eddie? Oh, I didn't, but you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to use scissors. So all I'm going to do now is this edge is kind of even. This edge isn't even, and I want to kind of fix that. So all I'm going to do, it's the kind of day we're having. I'm just going to chop that with these. These scissors are like cutting with a dull spoon, but they're the scissors I have, and you're going to see how easy what we're going to do from here. Now we have some decisions to make at this point, and we're going to do back stitching here in just a second, Ron. All right. Now to do the ends on the scarf, all we do, and that's why I didn't really care, is I'm just going to take the ends and turn them in. And so you can actually get creative here if you want. So all I did is I took the ends and just turned them in. I turned them about an inch or so. And then I'm going to run a seam across there. But that's if I want a straight edge. If you want, you can actually change the angle and fold it in even more. like fold it way in, and you can. Oh, here, I'll show you rather than try and fight with it. So what I did on this one, I did one end here. Yeah, the end. That end came undone. That end came undone too. What I did on this one is rather than go straight down, I folded in the sides to give myself a point. And then I would have folded this over and made it a little more neat. But for the sake of what we're doing, you can see the idea. So I just folded in each side and had my point. Or you could fold it all the way over, so it's like at an angle if I wanted to do something like this, if I wanted to be super fancy. So you can finish this any way you want, really. All you're gonna do is just take those ends in and fold them in until you get the angle that you like. And I'm not gonna go too funky because then you need pins, and we all know how I feel about pins. Do I want to go at an angle, Eddie, or do I want it straight? In the comments, what do you want? Straight or angle? This is audience participation.
Well, one could be straight and one could be an angle.
But I don't want to do that because then it's weird. Right?
I mean,
I don't want to do the point because that one's a pain in the butt. But I could do like an angle like that.
well, you already have a straight scarf, right?
I do have a straight scarf.
I think you go with
As,
an angle.
as straight as a scarf can be. I mean,
Rhonda says angle as well.
okay, fine, we'll do angle. I gotta do it. Gotta do it for the views. Which reminds me, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Because of having this thought that if we can get enough subscribers, that it would be worth it, and then I can like upgrade some of our equipment.
Janice also says angle.
Okay. So what you're gonna find with the angle is I'm gonna put an angle on here, but you can see how I'm fighting with it a little bit, because the other thing you have to keep in mind is that that's kind of a nice angle. I mean, I guess we could go do. I was trying to do more of a 45, but I think I like that one. I think that angle looks good.
If you cut the thing, like the...
You think you cut the angle first and then fold it in?
I think that would...
That would probably be easier.
Yeah.
It would be a
But
lot
I mean,
easier.
it's already folded, right?
It's already folded. Oh wait, because let me just fold the bottom in more, take the top out a little bit. Yeah, it's easier if you cut the angles. This is a very, very true statement. But by not cutting the angle, then I also don't have to worry about pinning stuff in place and everything. Because I'm just going to fold over the edges. But I'm probably going to end up cutting it because I am not winning this oh wait, maybe I'm folding the wrong side in. That's what everybody tuned in for today, was to watch me fight with a scarf to make an angle. All right, there we go. Get serious about it. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut it. I give up. I'm gonna get a rotary cutter.
Do you want...
What's that?
I mean, I could have gotten the rotary cutter.
That's all right.
Well, now it's just...
Now it's dead air and nobody's on screen. We're breaking all the rules today. All right. If you just tuned in and I wasn't here, and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I watching something? Now I'm back. So all I'm going to do to make the angle, because we all want an angle. Now keep in mind, when I lay this flat, I have to make sure that my stripe is centered, because remember that the back strip is wider than the front, so it's going to roll around to the front a little bit.
Would it be easier if you sewed a basting stitch around the edge?
Oh, probably. But that's like an extra step. Y'all forget who you're dealing with here. You want a 45 or you want a 30-degree angle? What do you think?
30.
Or do you want to do a point? A point's easy to do. Should we sew a point in it?
Yeah.
Let's do... No, because it doesn't finish out as nice.
Yeah, do a 30.
30... I think that's a 30. Is that a 30? Whatever that is there. That's a 45. We'll do that. The worst case scenario, we just screwed it up and we're going to have a shorter scarf. Right?
Yeah.
So now that I've cut my angle, I'm just going to fold that in. And I suppose I could have clipped that tip off a little bit so that I have less bulk there, but I don't really care. I'm just going to fold everything in about an inch, if it lets me. Yeah, there we go. It'll let me. We'll force it into compliance. There we go. See, this is the beauty. And then what I'm also going to do is There we go. I don't think I'm putting an angle on the other side. This is almost more work than I wanted to do. But that's all right. We do it for the... See, look at that. So we just folded it in. Then we're going to center the thing on it. And I'm just going to use the same thing. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it off the edge there, hold everything where... Now, if you were somebody that was a lot more persnickety than myself, oh, I might have to get pins. I might have to give in and get pins. All right, there we go. We're gonna get it started. Drop the foot, and this is now gonna. This is the bulk, and now it doesn't want to go because of how bulky I've got it. There we go. We'll get it started. There we go. So yeah. So the reverse on this bad boy. Oops. Hold on. We got to get this. We got a lot of bulk in that corner because of me not. This is probably. I'm glad you're enjoying this, Eddie. Well, we're gonna have to start that down here a little bit because I didn't trim enough of that out. Oh my gosh, this is turning into a mess. All right, that looks good, right? Yes, that looks exactly like we want it to. Let's just sew it. Yeah, go. Oh, I guess it would help if I had that engaged, right? Why does that not want to go now? That's what I get for... There we go. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. Now we got it started. So, if you do need to go reverse on a featherweight, this little lever here, wait,
Yes.
Yeah, okay. This little lever reverses and then makes you go straight. And you set your stitch length by winding this in or out so that when you go all the way down, it'll kind of stay where you want it to. I have it set right around 8, but I can make it a little bit more, a little bit less. All right. I'm glad you all suffered through that with me. And then I'm just locking my stitch in by going back and forth. And that's that. That was exciting. And look. We have an angle. And you all got to see how that was done. This side here I'm going straight because that's just how I feel about it right now. So to make a straight edge, you just fold it all under. Like I said, you could also, the point would be easy to do too, because then you kind of bring both sides in. But all I'm going to do is bring that down, center that strip on there. And the reason that you want to do your ends first is because when you sew your sides, and you're going to be in a little bit, so that you won't be able to fold it in as easy. And this will also help kind of create the margin you need on each side so that it comes out, so it's easier so it stays put better. Oops. And now you see where I'm getting into a little bit of bulk and it's not feeding quite as well. I could loosen that up a little bit and make that problem go away, but I don't really care. And you're all enjoying the show, I hope. Any all right. So now all we're gonna do is see how we done the edge, we kind of set that margin by doing the ends first. So now all we're going to do is kind of try and keep that same thing as we're just going to run a stitch halfway between the edge and there all the way down, and I'm just going to eyeball it because that's the way I roll. If you were, like I said, if you were really kind of hardcore, you could probably measure it or use some sort of... Now, before I get into this is also something very important. You're not going to see it on this one because I think we did a good job. If, when you connected it, there was a little, that it wasn't perfectly straight across, you can get a little bit of a twist in it. In fact, you can kind of see it on this one because I wasn't paying super attention. And what happens is one side is not perfectly on the other, so you get kind of like a little bit of a wave or a twist where it's not even on both sides. That's because it shifted a little bit from side to on the side, so one side is a little bit higher than the other where it got sewn together. If you run into that, Minky's super pliable, so you can kind of just bend it back where it needs to be. But if you run into it, it's not perfectly flat. A lot of times it's got more to do with the fact that it didn't get sewn sewn parallel, I guess would be the way to say it. And of course I should have ironed this before I did it because the fold from the bolt is right there, but whatever. And I'm just going to drop that on there, and away we go. And we're going to lock in that end stitch, and I'm just going to go all the way in. This is where Minky makes you work for it, because it's a little bit slippery sometimes. The feed dogs might not like you as much. And all I'm doing is I'm just kind of rolling the back of this to keep this kind of this. Now at 3/4, like the extra 3 inches gives us a 3/4 inch border, and that's about the width of this foot. So all I'm doing is riding that foot right down the middle of the border here. And if you're looking close, you can kind of see the little bit of a twist I've got going on there. And I am helping it a little bit with a little bit of a pull. That's not best practice. And you can see where that's off a little bit. We're drifting.
On the apps, stitching in the ditch was so better.
Stitching in the ditch, it may sew a little better. What you're going to run into, though, with Minky is it becomes very frustrating very quick. And the other thing that you're going to find is if you stitch in the ditch, you've got to be super precise. This is one of the tricks that I always tell people, that if you're doing a quilt and you're thinking you want to stitch in the ditch, don't. Offset from the ditch like like a 1/4 of an inch. Because what happens is, if you're stitching in the ditch and or trying to stitch in the ditch and you're not perfect, every time you come out of the ditch, it's obvious. And unless you're super good at stitching in the ditch, you're going to come out of that ditch a lot. Whereas if you're not in the ditch, you can get a little bit of a wave in your line, and it's not going to be as obvious to the eye because it's not trying to follow the line that's already there. You'll get a little, if that makes any sense what I just said. Adjust that a little bit. See, now the first side is always the pain in the butt side because you're trying to make sure everything is kind of lined up where you want it. The second side is going to be a lot quicker and easier because we've established we've got everything kind of laying flat. All right. So what that did for us is, so what you would run into if you did, especially you'll see this a lot with Minky especially, is if you tried to stitch in the ditch, what would have happened is anytime you came out of the ditch and onto the Minky, you see how on Minky you get this really, what are you doing?
I just realized.
You just realized that you should be working and not texting? Are you playing a game of chess, aren't you?
It's like I have 47 hours to make a move.
Well then, yeah, you gotta wait. So, if you're stitching in the ditch, you see how on Minky your stitch line really shows because of the piling in the fabric. If you're stitching in the ditch, what happens is as you come out of the ditch even a little bit, it would really be obvious to somebody that's looking. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I usually will not stitch directly in the ditch. I will usually offset a 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch at least, and that way any sort of variation in my straight line isn't super jarring to the eye. And then all I'm going to do is repeat that process on the other side. Now this, what you're going to find is the second side, like I said, goes a lot easier. Because we've got this side where we want it, it now makes the tube a little bit more stable because basically And you can see I'm able to just go a lot faster. I'm not spending a lot of time fighting with the fabric tube this time because of the fact that the other side kind of stabilized everything. It kind of helps keep everything in place. And look at us go. We're almost there. Our timing is almost perfect too because it's almost been an hour. And I hope Becky's enjoying her. I think she's in Aruba this week. So I hope she's down there thinking of us in the sun. And I'm just going to roll that over a little bit more. I will say the one thing I do not like about a featherweight is the pedal. Because it's got, the pedal is just, has that little knob. It doesn't, some of the newer ones have, some of the less old ones have a better pedal, but the vintage ones, there we go. And there we go. We're almost done. And now you can see we got a little. You can see where that little bit of a twist there. That's because probably because we're not. Get over, get over, get over. And like I said, if you take your time and really go do it right, you'll get much better results than I do. But there you go. That's a scarf. And like I said, what you can do is you could, if you wanted to, run some more stitch lines down here to give it more of an effect. But those two parts on the edge should hold it for the most part. And if I had taken my time and done it right and rolled it better, I wouldn't have as much bulk in the middle. But like I said, what you could do is run some more seams down it, and it would kind of flatten it out a little bit and make it look a little bit better. But I would also recommend, like I said, if you would piece this with like some charm packs or something, it would also give you a little bit more to work with. But there you go. And then if you go on, wait, yes, we want the angle to be up front, so we're going to have to wrap it this way so you can see my angle. But that's a scarf. Like I said, and they're really nice. The Minky is a very nice material for a scarf. It is super. These, like I said, I have one. If you really wanted to, if you had something like outdoorsy in your life, you could actually make the top half out of like a nylon or something a little bit more waterproof with the Minky on the back, so it's kind of an actual, like a lot more functional than designer. In fact, I was on the LL Bean website and I ran across, it had like this $60, it was on sale, it was on clearance for $60. It was normally $120, and it was some sort of camping blanket outdoor thing, and all it was polar fleece quilted. It wasn't even quilted, it was stitched around the edge to a piece of like nylon, and I'm like, holy cow, for $20 I could make one of those. But you can make a scarf very similarly. This is a very nice, like I said, it will keep you warm, it is comfortable, the fleece, the Minky is really nice against the skin, and you could do different things with the top to really make them pretty. You could go all out and embroider like names and stuff on there. They're nice, like I said, and they're quick. You saw how easy it was to make, and I wasn't trying too hard. The machine did add a little bit of fun to it, and you can get better results. Like I said, if you take your time, you can get much better results than I had. But I'm just messing around, and you can make it out of scraps. Questions? Oh, Gene wants a kit. Oh, that we might have to do a kit, Gene. That would be easy enough to do. Tell you what. I might have a kit available for you, Gene, if you want one, because I have the scraps left. I think I've got 2 strips left over from this border print that we cut. So we'll see. Anyway, any other questions? Yeah, like I said, the Featherweight's a great machine. It's a lot of fun, pretty straightforward, not a lot to it. It is a great. I would recommend. Like I said, if you're looking for a traveling machine, these are awesome machines to travel with. They're really compact. They sew real nice. The one thing you do have to get used to is they are not as fast. This machine is not nearly as fast as what I'm used to sewing on, so that can be frustrating if you're one of those people that when you get stuck behind somebody doing 60 and a 65 that you want to shoot them. Will remind you of that sometimes if you're used to sewing fast. You're like, why isn't it going faster? But once you get into your rhythm, it's a lot of fun, really relaxing, and I really, like I said, I enjoy it. You can buy this featherweight. We have this here. I have another one that's not quite in nice shape that I was gonna take home. It's older. It's an older version. But this one sews really nice. I don't know if I want to part with it, but I probably would if you stopped in. Anyway, that's all we've got. Check us out online. Buy stuff from the store. Subscribe to stuff. Share with your friends and all that. Hope you all had a good time. Hope to see you again next week. So on, and be excellent to each other.